You like to cook? You'll be a chef. Interested in education? Maybe you'll become a teacher. I wanted to fly, so I became a pilot. I eventually got my pilot's license with several classes and then got a job with the Air National Guard. Unfortunately, none of the major airlines were hiring when my time was up. So for about 2 years now, I have been with a small regional airline. Throughout all of my trials and tribulations, the one constant in my life has been Amy, my wife. My beloved Amy came from a single-parent family of drunkard parents. Amy was probably the only kid in school who was poorer than me. Amy was a freckled girl with a nose too big for her face and jug ears that she tried to hide with her long, light brown hair. We met in third grade and never parted after that. It was us, two kids from the wrong side against everyone else. I remember the day in junior high when I told Amy I was going to be a pilot and fly. Amy didn't bat an eye. Kevin, if you're going to fly airplanes, promise to take me with you. And I did. And we got married the first chance we got. My height never exceeded 5 feet 6 inches, but Amy grew to almost 6 feet. She was a slender girl with almost no hips. She still had freckles and her nose and ears didn't grow, but to me, Amy was the most beautiful bride in the world. That didn't change after our wedding at the courthouse. Amy followed me from bases in Asia to the Pacific Ocean and everywhere in between. Amy made the house cozy whether she was freezing in Greenland or sweating in Panama. Amy was a real bargain shopper. She could stretch my meager paycheck, haggling, making deals on everything from food to furniture. Amy could haggle with anyone. Amy's only weakness was postcards. My God, that woman loved postcards. Everywhere we went, Amy had a postcard of the place. On all of our trips around the world, Amy carried boxes of postcards from one end of the earth to the other. Kevin, Amy would say, when I pestered her about the postcards, I know where I'm from, but I want to know where I've been, because I'm not going to stop anywhere until we get to the top. We used a bunch of savings plus my meager paycheck and bought a fixer-upper house. It was a beautiful big old house with a huge yard, garage, just full of charm and character. Now regional airline pilots make less than a manager at McDonald's, and my starting salary was just over $25,000. I didn't care. I had Amy, and I could fly almost every day. What could be better in life? To make ends meet, Amy took a job with a real estate developer. My life consisted of Amy flying, fixing up the house, and working on the Ford F-250 truck I bought cheap. At first, Amy rode the bus to work, but soon she had a new Camry. Amy said she needed reliable transportation since I was away from home so often. Our life was wonderful, and we christened every room in the house several times, as well as the apartment room over the garage and even the backyard on a few warm, starry nights. Amy was still constantly sending out ads to all the airlines, from American to Federal Express, but due to rising fuel prices and safety concerns, no one was hiring. I was willing to be patient. Life was good. In the morning, I got a ride to work where Jose, our head mechanic, was waiting for me. Jose helped me a lot with my truck. We replaced or rebuilt every part, from the rear end to the injectors. Jose escaped Cuba more than 2 decades ago on a wholly homemade raft with his girlfriend, now wife Maria, at the age of 18. After his service, he took a profession as an aircraft mechanic. He had many children and was the proudest father you'll ever see. Today we rode with his youngest son, Angelo, a freshman in high school. "Good morning, Jose and young Mr. Angelo," I said as I buckled my seatbelt. "Jose, we can stop by King 1 Developers. I need to drop off this cell phone." I picked up my wife's cell phone. Amy had left it on the kitchen table this morning. I wondered if she had forgotten it. Amy was always talking or texting on that little pink box. She was never without it. Angelo, like any teenager, was listening to an MP3 player on his headphones. Seeing the phone in my hand, Angelo pulled out the headphones. "Hey, Mr. Kevin, what a cool phone. Can I look at it?" "Really, Angelo?" I tossed the phone to him in the back seat. Juan was fiddling with the radio when his son Angelo exclaimed, "Oh, someone's going to get lucky today." "What do you mean, Angelo?" I said, turning to face him in the back seat. "Look at this message, Mr. Kevin," Angelo said, turning Amy's screen toward me. "Second day of protein lunch?" I read from the screen, "What the hell does that mean?" Angelo suppressed a laugh. Protein lunch today. The color disappeared from my face. Now watch the next one. Angelo scrolled down the page. There were a lot of messages with some guy, and how they were having a good time together. I felt my breakfast was coming to an end. Juan looked at me. Captain, are you okay? You're white as a ghost. Jose called out to all the pilot captains. No, Jose. I suddenly felt very sick. Could you please take me home? I tried to speak normally. Angelo, could you tell me who sent those messages and maybe forward them to me? No problem, Mr. Kevin. Angelo pressed a few buttons on his phone. They're on their way to you now. The sender is one Troy 1K boss. Troy Kingston was Amy's boss, the head of King 1 developers. How bloody corny. A secretary having fun with her boss and me being the cuckold husband. My God, this was a bad script. Don't worry, Captain, Jose said, turning the car around. I'll have one of the other guys take over your duties for the day. Would you like me to take you to the doctor? No thanks, Jose. I tried not to pounce on him in the car. I just really need to get home and deal with this. The ride home seemed to take forever. Angelo kept reading the messages aloud, every word of which made me sick to my stomach. Next chapter. I barely made it into the downstairs bathroom before I lost my entire morning meal. I splashed cold water on my face and sat on the bathroom floor, leaning my back against the tiled wall. This bathroom was the first bathroom Amy and I had remodeled. We didn't know much about tile and even less about plumbing, but together we made it work. Our way of celebrating the completion of the bathroom remodel left a smile on my face for 2 days. Maybe Amy's cheating, I thought. Troy Kingston was in his 50s, almost 2 decades older than both Amy and me. He was the kind of guy you think of when you picture a real estate developer. Twice married, 6 feet tall, trim build, permanent tan, dyed hair with partings to fill in the bald spots. Big, murmuring voice, always a handshake or joke accompanied by a firm slap on the back. Maybe it was just a joke, I frantically hoped. It was all a crude joke by Amy and Troy. I knew Troy had 2 kinds of jokes, the ones he told in mixed company and the crude ones when only men were around. I felt better, my breathing returning to normal. I stopped by Amy's office under the pretense that I wanted to take her to her favorite diner and find out what the hell had happened. Picking myself up off the floor, I saw that it was almost 11:30 in the morning. How long have I been sitting here? Feeling like a fool, I jumped in my truck and headed to Amy's office. As I walked into the King 1 developer's office, I figured if this was a joke, Amy and I would laugh about it. I would have spat a bunch of shit at Troy, her boss, but I knew he would laugh. I asked the receptionist to get Amy on the phone. The receptionist made a few calls and then said Amy was unavailable. I told the receptionist that I needed to return something to Amy. She gave me Amy's cell phone number. I already got it. I laughed, holding out Amy's cell phone. Just need to give it back to her. Oh, the receptionist replied. So she's not here. I think I saw her leave with Mr. Kingston. They usually have lunch at his house or at the club. Would you like to leave your phone with me? I tried to ignore my bad feeling. Don't worry, I'll find her later. Next chapter. I tried to control my breathing as I walked down the driveway to Troy Kingston's house. I'd been to this house once before for an office Christmas party. The house was a huge mansion, made of plywood and stucco. In a good wind, it would just blow away. It had an Olympic swimming pool, a sunken 3-car garage under the bedroom, even a pseudo-fish pond in the backyard. Troy Kingston's big red Hummer, H2 with the license plate King 1, was parked outside the garage, meaning Troy, and Amy must be inside. The front door wasn't locked, so I stepped inside. There was a noise coming from the upstairs bedroom. Preparing for the worst, I climbed the stairs and headed for the master bedroom door. Putting my ear to the door, I heard the shower running. I pulled out Amy's cell phone and hit the speed dial button. The muffled ringing of the cell phone echoed in the bedroom. I took a step back from the bedroom door. Troy Kingston, a voice answered. Hey, Troy, I said into my wife's cell phone. Listen, Amy left her cell phone at home this morning. The office said she was with you. Can you tell me where you are so I can give her the phone? Better yet, let me talk to Amy. Greetings, Kevin. Troy's voice came through the earpiece. We're on our way back to the office from the club right now. We just finished a working lunch with a client. Stop by my house for a second to pick up some paperwork. Amy's in the bathroom right now. Wait. I walked over to the bedroom door and opened it ajar. I saw Troy closing the mouthpiece and yelling into the bathroom. Damn it, Amy, come out. Your flyer is calling and asking for you. Amy stepped out of the shower. Wrapping a towel around her head, she sat down on the bed. The fact that Troy and Amy were comfortable being around each other like this spoke volumes about how well they knew each other. This wasn't a sudden fling. It had been going on for a long time. Hi, Kevin, Amy said, taking the phone from Troy. He sat down next to her. Amy started flirting with Troy, jamming the phone between her ear and shoulder. What's up? I'm so glad you found my phone. I've been looking all over for it. Nah. At that moment, I pushed open the bedroom door and walked in. They both froze at my sudden appearance. Well, Amy, I said, pointing to her hand, I don't think you're going to find your phone between Troy's legs, and neither is a cell phone detector. Troy was the first to react. He jumped up and ran into the bathroom, slamming the door behind him. Amy was still lying on the bed. Get dressed, Amy. Let's get out of here so you can tell me what the hell you think you're doing taking our marriage down the drain. No, Amy said. What? Kevin, I'm not going anywhere with you. I'm sorry you caught us like this, but I like living like this. I was stunned. You like living like a cheating slut? Amy's eyes flashed slightly. I didn't mean to offend you, Kevin, but I'm used to a better lifestyle than what you can provide. Troy can give me something you won't be able to do for a few more years, if at all. This, I circled my hand around the room. This is what you're throwing away our marriage for? I'm not throwing anything away, Kevin, Amy said calmly. I'm making a choice. We had a good marriage for almost 15 years. I was a good camp wife who followed you around the world, living like a pauper, and it was fun at the time. But now I deserve better, and I don't intend to live the next decade clipping coupons and scrounging for bargains. She removed the towel from her hair. I'm sick of shopping at Walmart looking for half-price toilet paper. I want everything at once, not wait until I'm too old to enjoy it. You can't compare to what Troy has, and anything you can give me today doesn't compare to that. Troy knows how to treat me better than you do. I ask you to respect that and my decision. I was stunned. My mind just blocked. Respect what, Amy? A cheating wife and a man who hides in the bathroom. Amy just shrugged, looking back at me. All the oxygen was gone from the air. I needed to get out before I passed out. I tossed the phone to Amy. I gave Amy the middle finger. Respect that, Amy. I turned to walk out the door as I suddenly said over my shoulder, You two deserve each other. I have flights tomorrow. Get out of my house. Next chapter. For the rest of the month, I was confused. They say grief goes through 7 stages, but I couldn't get past the shock and denial for 2 weeks. How could Amy do this to me? Had I missed so many signs? Was I really such an ignorant fool, unable to notice what was right in front of my nose? I was trained to notice little things before they turned into big problems. A professional was supposed to notice the slightest signs such as a change in air pressure and engine noise, but how could I completely lose situational awareness in my own life? Every morning I would wake up and roll over, expecting to see Amy, and then the memories of the emotions would start all over again. After the 3rd week, the pain started. It was worse than any physical wound I had ever suffered. Amy ripped my heart out. Studies have shown that the brain's receptors register emotional pain as a real injury in the same way they respond to physical pain. I could attest to that. I felt grief-stricken. Jose, the head mechanic, and his wife Maria were a godsend. They were the only ones I told my story to. Jose and Maria were stunned. Parting with their spouse was as much a mystery to them as thermonuclear physics. Jose had taken a bullet for Maria during their escape from Cuba. Maria nursed the wounded Jose on a raft for days, using up all the drinking water until a Brothers to the Rescue plane found them. Once in America, both worked 2 and sometimes 3 jobs while raising 6 children. While Jose served, Maria started and still runs a cleaning business. The anger started at the end of the month when I got a call from the bank. I was overdrawn and my checks were bouncing. The meeting with the bank teller started the anger stage. All the accounts were nearly empty. Amy had cleaned them out. I tried to get a new line of credit but was denied. The employee sympathized with me, but told me that Kingston did a lot of business with the bank. My account was flagged. As I was running out of the bank, there was a man standing by my truck. He handed me the divorce papers. As I got in the cab, I researched the legalities and realized that I was really screwed. Amy claimed that the cost to repair my 8-year-old truck was equal to the cost of her new Camry. Amy emptied all the accounts, even cashed in all the stocks and bonds. In return, she offered me a house. Using a grossly inflated appraisal of the value of the house and her share of it with improvements made sense on paper, but not in the real world. I only had 10 business days to pay off the bank before it started foreclosure proceedings. Next chapter. There's not much you can do, Mr. Kevin. I sat at Juan's kitchen table with his oldest son. He was in his last year of law school. One of his family law professors was going over divorce papers and a settlement offer. Your ex-wife Amy can use the boyfriend's lawyers to score on you. You may win a battle or two, but you will lose the war. I thanked my son Juan for his help and then tried to figure out what I needed to do. I needed money, and fast. I hated to do it, but my favorite truck had to go. Juan had a friend who needed a good truck for his landscaping business, so this sale brought in $7,000. It allowed me to take a little time off, get out of foreclosure, and pay my upcoming taxes and insurance bills. Jose's wife, Maria, still did the house cleaning and now also did the office work. Every day for the next year, if I wasn't flying, I worked with Maria's cleaning crews. If I needed to go somewhere, I bicycled. My frugality would make Scrooge blush. The only real food was the home-cooked meals that Juan and his wife Maria forced on me. Maria was constantly trying to set me up with some pretty Latina, but I couldn't even afford a can of soda, let alone a date. By the beginning of my sophomore year, the divorce was behind me. I was able to get ahead and even took a day off every now and then to get back to my chores. One day, I found boxes of Amy's postcards. My first thought was to burn the damn postcards in the fireplace to help heat the house. I couldn't afford to pay any more court bills, so I got on my bike and rode to the local library. For someone with limited resources, the public library was a real treasure. I used one of their computers to send Amy an email about the postcards. A reply from Amy came within the hour. The postcards are where I've been, not where I'm going. Do what you want with them. I printed out my original letter and Amy's reply in case I needed them and headed home. In the evening, I built a big fire in my old stone hearth. I even splurged on buying some marshmallows to roast. Watching those cards smoke was the first time I was able to fall asleep peacefully and even woke up without thinking about Amy. Next chapter. It had been over 2 years since I had last seen Amy in the bedroom. Late one Friday night, I was driving back from the city to our small airport. We were taxiing down the runway when the flight attendant of our small plane poked her head into the cramped cockpit. We have a passenger problem, the flight attendant said. We have a guy who's had a few drinks and won't turn off his cell phone. Very rude and belligerent. Tell him it's an FAA rule, I asked. Yes, she replied. This guy called me several different names. We were 6th in line for takeoff, so I told the first officer I'd take it from there. Usually the sight of a uniform and a few stern words quieted the rowdy passengers. This happened once every few months. It was annoying, but not a problem. As I got out of the cab, I was surprised to see a flushed Troy Kingston sitting in the 4th seat talking on his cell phone. He was yelling at some poor henchman on the other end. What shocked me even more was Troy's seat companion. It was my ex-wife, or what was left of my ex-wife Amy. She was wearing more bling than Mr. T had. Amy's hair was styled and dyed white, almost bleach blonde. Her once generous nose was gone, replaced by a tiny button. Amy's ears no longer protruded, but were cropped just enough that they were not visible. Her lips, however, were plump like a trout's. All freckles were gone, and the skin on her face was so taut it resembled an inflated balloon about to burst. There were probably 10 pounds of plastic in her new screw-on fake bob. At least I knew where the money from our accounts was going. Good thing Amy didn't waste it, I muttered to myself. Gathering my thoughts, I went into professional pilot mode. Mr. Kingston, I began, standing over the seated Troy. I must insist that you turn off your cell phone immediately. It could interfere with the safety of this airplane and put you and my passengers in danger. Troy noticed me for the first time. Back off, flyboy. I paid for my ticket. I'm trying to save a deal that's worth more than you and this shitty airline combined. Amy. I turned to her across the seat. Could you please talk some sense into your traveling companion? Don't talk to her, you penniless asshole, Troy pounced on me. Just because you're driving this flying bus doesn't mean anything, so back off. He went back to his conversation. And I looked at Amy, but she only turned away to look out the window. Sighing, I walked back to the booth and picked up the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay, but we will be returning to the terminal for a few minutes. Please remain in your seats and we will continue the flight as soon as possible. I appreciate your patience. My first mate was already leading us out of the cab lane back to the gate. He had alerted airport security, and they had gathered to await our arrival. It was not a pleasant experience for Troy Kingston. 3 inappropriately rowdy airport police officers boarded the plane, followed by a Department of Homeland Security officer. Troy was let out in handcuffs. The Department of Homeland Security officer told me that Troy would be charged with interfering with an airplane crew, endangering the safety of an aircraft, and a host of other charges. Since the plane was on a runway, all of these are federal offenses. A DHS spokesperson explained that Troy will spend the weekend in a holding cell because federal court does not sit on weekends. As a bonus, he will be placed on the no-fly list as a flight risk. He will be automatically banned from any air travel for the next 90 days. Good luck getting on the no-fly list. To top it off, Troy was billed for the fuel used to get the plane to the runway, as well as landing time and other ground staff costs. That wouldn't happen to a nicer guy, I thought as we taxied onto the runway. Next chapter. Jose, his wife Maria, and I were sitting at the kitchen table. Their middle daughter had just started medical school. She's so smart, my daughter. Jose had a few drinks to celebrate. She's going to be a rocket surgeon. I smiled, but declined his offer to fill my glass. Jose had a right to be proud. Seeing Jose with his wife Maria made me sad for a moment about Amy and me. Not like that worthless Amy, Maria said. Captain, why don't you let me find a pretty Latina for you? I'll treat you well. I hid a smirk. Maria never lost her accent and always tried to play matchmaker. Maria, you know I'm a little nervous after our last meeting. Ah, Maria interrupted, and then mumbled something in machine gun Spanish to her husband, Jose. Captain, you'd better do without that wife. She's no good for anything. No argument, I replied. Maria scooted closer to me. Amy didn't know what she had. Amy's old wife is sad now, not happy. I perked up my ears. It seemed that for the most part I had already forgotten Amy. Being upset with her was like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. But everyone loves gossip, especially if it involves your ex-wife. Come on, Maria, what do you know? I teased her. Maria, with her small army of cleaners, housekeepers, and assistants, had an intelligence network that the CIA and Israeli Mossad would envy. Well, Maria began, my girls say Amy isn't that good. There are no wives like her anymore. They're afraid she'll try to steal their husband too. The other wives call Amy lemon pie. Amy throws a lot of parties. The other wives don't come. Some husbands come, but they look at Amy like a dog looks at meat. She doesn't like it, and Mr. Kingston gets angry. No more parties. I stifled a laugh. Amy is angry that Mr. Kingston won't marry her. He doesn't give Amy much money and she complains a lot. The girls say Mr. Kingston doesn't trust Amy. He doesn't want Amy to leave home. Mr. Kingston always checks Amy's phone and, as you say, often interrogates Amy when she returns from trips. One day, Mr. Kingston hired a private police force to keep an eye on Amy. Amy found out about it and was very angry. I poured myself a drink. Well, Maria, what else would you expect? There's no honor among thieves and crooks. I hope they enjoy looking over each other's shoulder all the time. Marie continued. She was on a roll. I always send the elderly ladies to Mr. Kingston's house. He's a bad man, always trying to touch the younger girls. Amy always blames the girls for everything, complains to me that the girls treat Mr. Kingston badly. I know that's not true, but I'm not saying that if Amy can't satisfy Mr. Kingston, why blame the girls? No one wants to clean his house. He never tips his employees. Stop talking about Amy's silly old wife, Jose said. Captain, you and I are going golfing tomorrow. I won a round of golf at 9 Rivers Country Club last week in the church raffle. You play golf, Jose? I asked. Yes. Jose looked at Maria, his wife. When we came to America, Maria saw that all successful Americans play golf. So Maria bought me golf clubs on sale and made me take lessons. And all the kids, too. But that damn wife will never let me rent a golf cart. Maria looked at her husband sternly. We need to save up money for college for the kids. You're not a cripple. God gave you good legs. It would be an insult to God if you didn't use the legs he gave you. Jose threw his hands up, but I noticed a hint of a smile on their faces. Jose reached for Maria's hand. I finished my drink, wished them both good night, and got up to leave. Next chapter. Jose brought his son's clubs for me to use. I had sold mine at a yard sale a long time ago to make some money after my divorce. It was a beautiful day. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't flying, working, cleaning, or doing chores around the house. My good mood was broken as I stood at the entrance to the clubhouse. On the wall hung a large picture of Troy Kingston and Amy. Troy was a board member of the Nine Rivers Country Club. The picture was of some award or event they were attending. Jose saw me looking at the large framed photo. He caught my sour mood. Captain, Jose said, pointing to the entrance. Look over there and tell me if anyone is coming. Why? I asked. Shh, Jose replied. Just look over there and stay alert, okay? I stood with my back to Jose and stared at the entrance for a few minutes, feeling like a fool. Finally, Jose said, Okay, that's fine. We can go. I turned around and snorted loudly when I saw what Jose had done. Jose took a thick black marker and drew a mustache, teeth, and devil horns on Troy's picture. The resemblance to Amy was no better. Big nose, big ears, eyeliner, a scattering of moles. What are you, 12 years old? I exclaimed. But my mood was improved by Jose's youthful antics. Come on, Captain. Let's go play golf. Jose grinned, and we picked up our bags. I was having a lot of fun as we approached the 7th hole. There was a couple standing on the green in front of us. An elderly man was making a shot. We were silent, waiting for him to finish. Suddenly, he dropped his club, grabbing his arm, and fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Jose and I dropped our club bags and rushed to the green. A silver-haired woman about the same age was shaking the fallen man, trying to dial a cell phone number. When Jose and I approached the man, he was no longer breathing. Jose, start CPR. I leaned over the man and started CPR on his chest. Call 911, I yelled to the silver-haired woman standing next to us. I don't have a connection, she shouted in panic. Jose pulled out his cell phone. Damn, Captain, I don't have a connection either. I looked at my phone. It had the no connection symbol on it. Lady, you're going to have to call for help, I shouted to the woman. I can't leave my husband. She shouted, Snip, leave now to call an ambulance and help him survive, or stay and watch him die. I spat after her. She turned and ran towards the club, the visor falling off her silver hair. Jose and I continued to take turns, but after 10 minutes, we felt tired. I realized we weren't going to last much longer. I was doing mouth-to-mouth when an electric golf machine almost ran over my foot. I didn't hear the damn thing stop. It was the girl driving the beverage cart. She jumped out of the cart, turned around, and dropped the trays of drinks and cans on the ground. She opened the back lid of the cart and pulled out a small, hard plastic case. Kneeling down beside me, she opened the case and pulled out a portable defibrillator, the kind you see in malls and airports. Stand back, she said, pushing me aside and ripping open the guy's shirt. You, she pointed at Jose. Take the golf cart and go get help. Jose jumped into the cart and rushed as fast as the little electric motor would allow. I leaned back in my seat while the girl from the beverage cart attached sensors from the kit to the guy's chest. A computer voice from the kit was issuing memorized instructions. I saw the girl press a large orange button labeled Shock. The chest of the guy lying on the ground bounced once, then once more. His eyes opened. The girl felt his pulse, then turned to me. He's breathing, but we have to give him real medical attention or he'll die. She turned to the man lying on the ground again. I wiped my sweaty forehead with my hand and looked at the girl from the drink cart. She was a young, slender Hispanic woman of about 25 with long black hair tied back in a ponytail. Her name tag read, Nine Rivers Country Club Lords. I started to say something when suddenly there was the roar of a diesel engine. A Ford F-250 pickup truck pulled out from the edge of the field onto the green lawn and stopped next to us. The truck was loaded with gardening tools. A magnetic Raoul and Sons landscaping sign hung on the door. Jose jumped out of the driver's side. Recognize your old truck, Captain? That damned kid's golf cart battery died. I saw that monster and figured we had a better chance of taking the kid straight to the hospital. I pointed to the kid lying on the ground. Jose, bandage his legs and I'll take care of his chest. I turned to the girl from the drink cart. Lords, I'm Kevin and this is Jose. Let's get this guy out of here. We climbed into the cab, Lords and the guy in front. I moved into the driver's seat and Jose squeezed into the third seat behind the cab. I made sure everyone was buckled in and started the engine. The Power Stroke diesel roared loudly. Hold on, it's about to get rough. I put the truck in gear and drove it straight down the fairway. Lords pointed to the path. Take that path over there. It's the fastest way to get to the main gate. We'll go a little off the beaten path, I told Lords. I'd flown over the area 1,000 times. The pilot's keen eye told me which terrain would take us the quickest way to the hospital. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and that was the route I was going to take. It would save us 7 to 10 minutes. Minutes I knew we didn't have to waste. The Ford's tires tore up the sod as we flew down the fairway. Honking my horn, I raced down the back nine and sped through part of the sand trap. Lords was talking to a guy, and Jose was fighting for his life in the tight space. We approached the outer edge of the field and its high chain-link fence. Lords gestured south. There's an old gate about a mile from here. We don't need no stinking gate, I growled in my best movie accent. Grab onto something. I kept my foot on the gas pedal as we scrambled through the fence. Ford Power Stroke versus Chinese metal fence. No contest. Score 1 in favor of the American diesel. Hey, Captain, got a signal, Jose said, holding out his phone as we raced down the road toward the hospital, accelerating the speedometer into triple digits. Lords snatched the phone out of Jose's hands. She dialed a few numbers. Lords must have gotten through to the hospital because she pronounced medical terms that sounded like CTAC. Pulse, all in Greek to me. Lords slammed the phone down. I grinned and said, not bad for a drink peddler. The tires squealed as we jerked toward the hospital entrance. Lords threw me a hard look. I'm a nurse, dumbass. Oh, was all I could mutter as we stopped at the entrance to the emergency room where a medical team was waiting for us. Next chapter. After that, Jose and I were local heroes at the airport for another week. However, no good deed goes unpunished. About the same amount of time later, I received a registered letter from the Nine Rivers County Club. It contained a detailed bill for the damage my little outing had caused to the golf course. The total repair amounted to $247, $88.12. The letter demanded immediate payment, cash or bank check, or the matter would be referred to their legal department. I laughed out loud, crumpled the letter into a ball and tossed it in the trash. You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, I thought to myself. I never found out who the guy was or if he ever recovered. He must have been a big shot because as soon as his condition stabilized, an ambulance helicopter took him to a waiting air ambulance plane for dispatch. I tried calling Lords. The operator at Nine Rivers Country Club curtly informed me that Lords no longer worked at Nine Rivers. I made inquiries on my own for about a week before enlisting the help of Jose's wife, Maria. It took Maria about 15 minutes for her Latina Women's Network to come up with chapters and verses about Lords, from phone number, address to shoe size. Maria began talking about Lords as if she were giving a briefing. Lords was 26 years old, the only daughter of her father, an immigrant worker whom Lords cared for until his death. Her mother died when Lords was still a child. She never married, had just gotten her nursing degree but had yet to take the nursing exam and worked the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift at Mercy Nursing Home. Lords rented a room, wasn't dating anyone, and loved vanilla ice cream with sprinkles. That's it? Maria teased when she was done. No birthmarks wanted or warrants? Maria looked at me with a smug smile. Lords is a good girl, goes to Mass every Sunday at St. Paul's. Would you like me to set you two up? She rummaged in her pocket for her cell phone. No, Maria. I jumped up. Thanks for the cell phone and Lords' address. I think I'll take it from here. I heard Maria laugh as I walked out of her house. Next chapter. The next day, Lords was waiting for me on the steps of the house when I approached her with flowers in my hands. Lords saw the surprise on my face. She smiled. Why did you wait so long, Kevin? How? You knew I was coming, I stuttered. The Latina Women's Network works both ways, Kevin. Lourdes laughed. She stood up and took my flowers, then turned to walk up the stairs. You haven't had a chance. Stay there while I put them in water. Lourdes was a pleasure to talk to. She told me how she'd combined school, nursing homework, school, and until recently a job as a beverage delivery girl at the Nine River Country Club. Kevin, Lourdes began, I had and still have a lot of loan and tuition debt. My job at the nursing home covers the rent and daily living expenses. I made good money at this job by serving drinks. It helped me pay off my debts and spend money on my nursing course and the nursing exam as well as testing fees. Lourdes, what happened to the job as a drink delivery girl at Nine Rivers? I asked. Lourdes wrinkled her nose before answering. After our little monster truck ride, the Nine Rivers Board of Directors fired me. Claimed I left the country club grounds without working the allotted time. I know it was that board member, that asshole Troy Kingston. He's been trying to get me to sleep with him ever since I started working there. Now that Kingston guy entertains the secretary every Wednesday during lunch break. Lourdes shuddered as if from the cold. I shudder at the thought of that vile Slytherin touching me. What a snake. I wasn't surprised that Lourdes knew of my situation and marital status. The network of Latin women spawned a lot of gossip. Most of them, I found out, were exaggerated and erroneous. You know, Kevin, Lourdes said, most of the gossip says your wife left you to switch. A minority say she left because you were gay. I suppressed a laugh. Where did being gay come from? Well, Lourdes looked a little embarrassed as she spoke. Some of the girls on the cleaning crew showed more than a passing interest in helping you through your grief. The hemlines of your skirts got higher, and the necklines of your blouses got deeper. You didn't notice or react in any way, so they assumed you must be gay. Now I laughed. Oh, you must be talking about Anita and Orlando. There's no way I haven't noticed those two Latina girls and their attempts to cheer me up. I slammed myself on my knee. Lourdes, you can thank those two ladies for their efforts, but I have a very firm policy of, how can I put this simply? I don't eat where I shit. Lourdes chuckled. Good, I'm glad that didn't go unnoticed. Judging by your tone, your ex-wife didn't have such a policy about eating at work. Lourdes, to be blunt, my ex-wife Amy can eat shit. Next chapter. I wanted to see more of Lourdes. Kevin, I'm not a prude, but I'm not easy on the eyes either, Lourdes said. Can we meet tomorrow? Lourdes, I'm working on the house tomorrow. I'm having trouble hinging the door, I replied. Maybe you made the mortise holes too shallow. How did you adjust the reveal? Lourdes asked. Opening mortise to whom? I was puzzled. Lourdes only rolled her eyes. Good God, Kevin, give me your address. I'll see you early tomorrow morning. Lourdes had grown up surrounded by her father, a day laborer and handyman. What Lourdes knew about home repair and remodeling could rival the gang from the former TV show This Old House. When she didn't know, Lourdes would show up at my house with one of her residents from the nursing home where she worked. This home was home to retired craftsmen of every imaginable profession. These old folks loved to get out of the house and spend the day teaching us their specialties, from tile work to plumbing. It was like our own union of home remodeling contractors. Because of our schedules, we didn't have a lot of free time, but every spare minute we had was spent together. With each meeting, Lourdes and I grew closer, but it wasn't the closeness I dreamed of. Next chapter. The night went better, and the morning was even better. Lourdes, I've been thinking about this for a long time. Will you move in with me? Kevin, I'm not some slut moving into any bed after a night out, Lourdes replied. Lourdes, I'd like you in my bed every night. I sat up in bed admiring her. But that's a more reasonable suggestion too. It'll be cheaper for us to live together than apart. And you'll save money on rent. It'll help you reach your goal faster, getting into nursing school, passing the nursing exam and all that. Kevin, I'm not a freeloader, Lourdes replied. I'm not some whore trading my ass for free room and board. I always pay for everything. You're still going to pay, Lourdes. I grabbed her towel. I'll still trade you the repairs you make to this house in lieu of rent. Personally, I feel like I should be paying you for everything you've done. I get more value out of the deal. Lourdes tossed the towel aside, then sat down on the bed next to me and thought. I held my breath. Finally, she turned to me. Said, Kevin, do you think your friend Jose will lend us his truck to move my stuff on Friday? Next chapter. We had been together for over 6 months now. The house had never been in better condition, and I was happy. Of course, I was still working, cleaning house and putting in all the flying hours the FAA allowed. But then Lourdes came into my life. I wanted to ask Lourdes to marry me, but I knew she wanted to get her license and have a career before settling down. The housing crash affected even our city. It affected King 1 developers the most. The company collapsed and burned within a week. The whole operation was like a house of cards. The bank withdrew several loans, and King 1 developers collapsed. Federal regulators began to take a closer look at the company. Troy was playing with the rules, mixing funds and mortgaging himself to the hilt, even real estate he didn't really own. He didn't even have enough money to file for bankruptcy. However, Troy Kingston took it like the man he was. Late one night, dressed in his best suit, he got into a shiny H2 Hummer with a bottle of JW, started the engine, closed the garage door and sucked in the exhaust. I felt sorry for the people and the financial mess that coward Troy had left behind, but not him. Oddly enough, thoughts of how this would affect my ex-wife Amy didn't even cross my mind. She was in the past and I was looking forward to Lourdes and the future. A few weeks later, I was walking home from the bus stop when I saw a lone figure sitting on my porch steps. It was dusk, but even in the pitch darkness I realized who it was. "Hi, Amy," I said, standing over her. "Hi, Kevin," Amy replied. She looked at me but made no move to get up. "Amy, I'd like to say it's good to see you, but we both know that would be a lie. If you'll excuse me, I just got out of a long day. I want to get to my house. Let me through, please." Amy didn't move from her seat. "Why are you walking? Kevin, where's your truck?" "Amy, you're sitting on it." Amy looked around confused, then said, "Oh, you mean you sold it for a house? I get it now. Why, Kevin? You loved that truck." "I loved a lot of things back then, Amy. When you're forced to, you learn to do without a lot. That truck never let me down, unlike other things back then. The difference is that I miss that truck to this day." "How about me, Kevin? Do you ever miss me, Kevin? You know us," Amy said softly. I couldn't help myself. "Of course, Amy, I miss you with every bullet." Amy sighed, but I continued. "Besides, Amy, how can I miss you? It's not like you're gone yet." "Kevin, please, can we talk? I just got out of the hospital 2 weeks ago." "Amy, I'm sorry to hear you've been ill, and I wish you a speedy recovery. However, I don't see how your health could be of any concern to me. You have made it clear that you are not satisfied with the level of service I have been able to provide. A few years ago, you chose Troy, his care, and all his toys over me, us." "Yes, Kevin, but I almost died. When Troy had his procedure in the garage that night with the smoking exhaust pipes of the Hummer, I was asleep in the upstairs bedroom. The carbon monoxide leaking from his H2 almost killed me." "Geez, Amy, looks like those Hummer H2S are really bad for the environment. In retrospect, I can tell you should have talked Troy into driving a hybrid." "That's not funny, Kevin." I rubbed my chin with my hand. "I'm sorry, Amy, but I'm tired. Maybe we'll just go our separate ways. It wouldn't be good for either of us." "Kevin," Amy pleaded, "please let's go inside for a few minutes. I need to talk to you." I sighed and pointed to the door, walking up the porch steps. Amy started to stand up. I had forgotten how tall she was. I looked at Amy's face. She was trying to smile, but something was wrong. It wasn't just her new nose and big lips. Something was odd. But in the dim evening light, I couldn't make out what it was. In her right hand, Amy held a cane, which she leaned heavily on. The medium-sized gym bag she was sitting on was crumpled. I silently picked up Amy's gym bag as she climbed the steps to the front door with great difficulty. I walked past Amy and unlocked the door, opening it for her. This is going to be one hell of a conversation, I thought. Next chapter. Amy and I were sitting at the dining room table. In the light, I saw that Amy's face had changed. One side of her face had turned into a frozen mask. One eyelid half closed, the corner of her mouth curved downward. It was more noticeable because of the size of Amy's lips. A small amount of saliva had formed on them, which Amy was constantly wiping away with a handkerchief. "It was a stroke, Kevin," Amy began, "the result of carbon monoxide poisoning. I'm lucky the maid came earlier, I would have died. One side of my body is very weak and I have trouble with short-term memory. It gets worse when I'm tired." "Amy, I'm sorry to hear that. How are you now?" I asked. Kevin, that's why I'm here. I need the money. I spit out a mouthful of coffee onto the dining room table. It took a few coughs before I stopped choking. I got up from the table to grab a rag from the kitchen. When I returned, I wiped everything down. Amy, you're not kidding. I'm truly sorry for your condition, but I'm living on the edge myself. I didn't need to add because of you. Amy lowered her gaze to the table and didn't meet my gaze. Besides, I continued, you must have some assets after, uh, time with Troy. Last time I saw you, you had more bling than a rap star. Kevin, it's all gone. Amy wiped the corner of her mouth. Troy pawned it all in the days leading up to the collapse, trying to keep the creditors at bay. What was left was grabbed by bankruptcy attorneys. After Troy's suicide, the police turned the house into a crime scene. Last week, I was finally able to get inside and get that pile of clothes. Amy pointed to the gym bag at her feet. I slept in the women's shelter at night and ate in the church kitchen. What about social services? Disability? I asked. I filled out a bunch of forms. Most of them are processed within 90 days. The official has already told me that my injuries don't qualify, which means I won't be able to work or get benefits, Amy explained. See, Amy, surely you have friends in Troy's entourage who can help you? Not anymore, not even then. Amy grinned unhappily. Those bitches have made it clear they don't want me around. They're afraid of what I might do to their husbands for money. I can't blame them. At the time, I wasn't exactly in the way of male attention. No one wants to help a possible gold digger. It's like buying a rope to hang yourself with. Who's going to trust a cheating woman next to their boyfriend? I also managed to piss off all our mutual friends. After the divorce, they all took your side. I burned a lot of bridges. Okay, Amy, sell your Camry. It's only a few years old. When we bought it, it was a top-of-the-line model with all the features we needed. It will provide a quick source of funds, I suggested. Amy's face turned red. Kevin, the Camry was never mine. Troy bought it for me when he and I became friends. As I found out later, the title was titled to a King 1 developer. The bank confiscated it along with everything else. I was surprised that after all these years, this new information brought back my pent-up emotions. It suddenly seemed to me that Amy's cheating had happened yesterday. I tried to restrain my tone. Amy, you got that car less than 4 months after we moved here. You started having fun with that bastard before the ink on the mortgage was even dry. No, Kevin. Amy looked away. Troy and I didn't start doing it until 6 months after I started working. I'm sorry, Amy, I said sarcastically. I didn't mean to imply that your virtue is somehow compromised by waiting another 2 months to spread your legs. Damn it, Kevin. Don't think I don't know I screwed up. This is really hard. I never wanted us to end up like this. It just stunned me. Amy looked at my blank face. Kevin, are you sure you want to hear about this? Sure, Amy, why wouldn't I? I waved my hand. They say the truth will set you free. Go ahead and try. It's not a try, Kevin. I just want you to know that nothing was your fault. It was all on me. I got caught up in it. You didn't do anything. It was great at first. When I started working at King 1 Developers, they treated me like a queen. Troy always drove everyone away and picked up the check. It was such a change not having to look at the prices on the menu, count change, or worry about the cost of anything. He started paying attention to me. Troy knew all these important people. They treated me like I was somebody. You were somebody, Amy. You've been my wife, my partner since we were kids. Isn't that enough? I know that now, Kevin. I just wish I'd remembered it then. It all started the day you left for 3 days on a charter flight. Troy took me to a political fundraising dinner for $2,500 a plate. Kevin, my dinner alone would have been enough to cover 2 months of our mortgage. Did you get chicken or fish? Kevin, stop it. I'm trying to be serious. Troy has been very nice to me for a few weeks, but this was a big deal. Troy bought me a $2,000 evening gown just for this evening. He didn't even ask about the price. He acted like it was a small thing. Everyone thought I was Troy's girlfriend and treated me very well. We sat at the same table with the former Vice President of the United States. I was consumed by it all. The people, the glamour, the power. I just lost my head. It was like something I used to play when I was a kid. I was totally enthralled by it all, and I was walking on air all night. Somehow Troy and I ended up in the parking lot and had a lot of fun in his H2 Hummer. The valet must have gotten a hell of a tip, I commented. Kevin, please, it wasn't like that, Amy objected. What do you call it, Amy? Stylish? Having fun in the parking lot? More like a $20 hooker on a street corner? You lowered the moonroof to make it more romantic? Did you give old Troy a blowout in his Hummer? Amy at least blushed, but continued. I was so embarrassed the next day, feeling guilty and afraid you'd find out. I stuck to you like glue when you came home to make up for the time I spent with Troy. Wow, Amy, and here, I thought that's how you paid all the plumbers. Kevin, I swore it wouldn't happen again. I was going to be the best wife. We were going to be the best couple ever. I was going to quit this job first thing in the morning. But Troy was full of apologies, begging me to forgive him, claiming we both had too much to drink, couldn't help ourselves. It was an accident that would never happen again. He didn't want to lose me as a valued employee over a one-time mistake, blah, blah, blah. He was so smooth, and like a fool, I fell for it. If you remember, a week later, a few secretaries, myself, and other executives went with Troy to the coast to complete a huge project. He chartered a large private jet. It was so exciting to see Troy close a multi-million-dollar deal. On the way back, everyone was celebrating. A few drinks, joyful hugs, and suddenly in the airplane bathroom, Troy and I, you know what I mean. I couldn't help myself. Amy, I can see how all this elegance has made you weak. Kevin, I'm not proud of what I did. I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you what happened. After that trip, I just gave up and started enjoying the lifestyle. Gambling, fine wine, expensive food, jewelry. At first it was only during getaways, then it escalated to dinners with a few midday guests. Soon I became so comfortable that I began to resent you in the way we were living. That's when I realized I had put our relationship in jeopardy. The saddest part is that it wasn't really Troy's money. It was King One developers' money. Troy didn't have any money of his own. Most of his paycheck came from his two ex-wives. His Hummer was leased. Even the house, the Rolex watch, and almost everything else was in the company's name. Amy looked at me. Well, Kevin, that's my sad and pathetic story. Do you have any questions? Just a couple, Amy. I folded my hands on the table. If you had the lifestyle you wanted, why didn't you divorce me right away? Why did you spend another year and a half secretly cheating on me? What's the thrill of living between the wealth of Prince Troy and the rags of a pauper husband? Amy looked away. Kevin, at first it was because I didn't want to hurt you. We've been together since elementary school. You were my best friend. I kept telling myself that I was just going through a phase. It would be over soon. You'd never know, you wouldn't be hurt, we'd live happily ever after. But it was hard. All these things I didn't have before made me feel like royalty. For the first time, I wasn't a kid standing at the candy store window looking in. I kept putting off the end of my time with Troy. I was a fly drowning in honey. Amy wiped the saliva leaking out of the corner of her mouth again. That day you found me in Troy's bedroom stunned me. I was in a state of panic. I was sure you'd never take me back after what I'd done. But what could I do? I was past the point of no return. Half a loaf with Troy was better than nothing. Amy, how about we choose the truth? I said sarcastically. We could have made up if you had come to me after the first time. Kevin, I know this is going to be hard for you to believe, but I was going to end it in 2 days. Even if you hadn't found out, I was going to quit my job and end the whole sordid affair that same Friday. I was determined to devote myself to you, to us, our marriage, and our future. My resignation letter was already typed, signed, and dated. It was sitting in my desk drawer at work. Nice try, Amy. Now you're making me feel bad for barging in on you and Troy. If I had waited 2 more days, all of this could have been avoided. It's all my fault. I was such a fool. There was irony in my voice. I bet you don't have that letter with you right now, do you? No, Kevin. I can't prove it, nor can I disprove it. It won't help now, but after I moved in with Troy, I got bored. Everything revolved around Troy. I had more fun on my own. Okay, Amy, that's a standard question for guys. Is it because Troy was better in bed than me? I could see Amy hesitating, trying to think of an answer. If I need someone to lie to me about my abilities, I'll hire a prostitute. If you're not a prostitute, you don't need to lie. Let's find out the truth. Kevin, Amy began, you and I were the first, and before Troy, you were the only man. We were always good together, no complaints. But Troy was, well, older, more experienced. Troy had many partners during that time. I just felt like I owed Troy a debt of gratitude for everything he'd done for me and given me. You mean payment for services rendered? I asked. Kevin, I wasn't a prostitute or a whore, if that's what you're implying, said Amy cheerfully. So, Amy, what do you call someone who does it for goods or favors? That's different, Amy stated stiffly. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a prostitute by any other name. I began. What's the matter? You're even having fun in my house? In our bed? No, Kevin, never, Amy exclaimed. Troy wanted it. But for me, it wasn't about the entertainment, or the affair, or Troy, or even you. It was about lifestyle, about things, people, places. For the first time in my life, I was doing everything upscale. I wanted to get away from it, rise above it. Amy looked around the dining room. And not go back to that. Amy, it seemed like Troy had no problem sharing you for a year and a half while you were cheating on me. Did he continue to be as generous with his friends or other people after you moved in with him? Troy was very jealous, Kevin. Troy wanted me to cut you off from him after he and I started, you know, but I ignored him. I never had a relationship with both of you on the same day. Troy loved putting me out there, but hated it when I hung out with other men and constantly accused me of hanging around him. Ironic, because now I know he had girlfriends all over the world. Not to mention the escorts and call girls he invited when he went out of town. However, Troy always made sure it was just the three of us, with another woman. I did give in once, though. It was with his second wife, who Troy was still on good terms with. I didn't really get into it. She was a trophy wife straight out of a Hollywood movie with central casting, just a dense blonde with bleach in her head. All right, what exactly was the difference between you and her? I asked. Touché. Amy wrinkled her nose. As sad as it sounds, at the time I thought the blonde had it all. The money, the looks, the airplane seat up front, the lifestyle I wanted. I laughed at such empty-headed fools, and then I became one of them. I started turning into a plastic Barbie. Was it me who paid for all of Barbie's makeup? Or did Troy invest in the silicone? Amy wrinkled her nose again. Kevin, it wasn't your money. Troy hid the cost of the surgery in the budget of some project of his. I'm afraid the auditors will want their money back. You've always been good at bargaining, Amy. You can use some of the bedroom tricks Troy taught you to close the deal. Kevin, I can't live like this. I just want to die. Amy, if you want to leave this life the Troy way, there's nothing I can do to help you. I have a garage, but I don't have a car right now, sorry. I really shouldn't have kept making cheap jokes at Amy. It was like punching a rabbit. But I couldn't help it. The deep anger continued to bubble up. I thought I was over Amy, but was I? They say that love and hate are two sides of the same coin. I couldn't figure out what I was feeling. Disgust at the physical creature Amy had turned herself into, or anger at what she had done to me, to us, to our relationship. Kevin, Amy began, I know a lot has happened, but before this mess, we were always there for each other. I really need you now. We've been together most of our lives. We've both grown and changed. Can't we try to keep what we had? I stood up. Amy, I'd rather chew tinfoil and shave my head with a cheese grater. I finished my cooled coffee. I don't know who you are anymore, and I just don't trust you. How can I be sure you haven't hidden a bunch of money and jewelry? Maybe you're just waiting for the dust to settle so you can laugh at ignorant fool Kevin again. And then leave me with nothing. Amy leaned back in her chair, losing hope. I'll never leave you again. Please, I need your help. I'm sorry, Amy, but I can't afford to take that risk anymore. The stakes are too high. I can't help you. Can't or won't? Amy asked. What difference does it make? I replied. At that moment, the door opened and Lourdes walked in. She was dressed in flowered napkins and was returning from her day shift from 3 to 11 at the nursing home. I couldn't believe Amy and I had talked for so long. It was almost midnight. Oh, hi, Lourdes said, looking around at her surroundings, and then walked over to Amy, leaned over slightly and extended her right hand. I'm Lourdes, and you are? Making an effort on herself, Amy reached up and took Lourdes' hand. I'm Amy. Lourdes froze in shock, but quickly regained her composure and looked at Amy again. She considered Amy, her cane and her limp arm and facial features. Bella's paralysis? Lourdes asked, pointing to Amy's face. I beg your pardon? Amy replied. Bell's palsy, Lourdes stated professionally, looking at Amy's face. Damages the nerve that controls the facial muscles, resulting in paralysis. Very common with herpes. I don't have herpes, Amy said defensively, bringing her hand up to her face. Then she softened. But I can see how you might think that after what I did to Kevin. Amy sighed. I had a stroke. Amy continued to tell Lords the whole story. After Amy finished her story, Lords asked if she could talk to me in the kitchen. Kevin, Lords began, we can't just throw Amy out on the street. Okay, I said. Let me call one of Jose's sons. They can drop Amy off at the shelter. Lords grabbed my hand so tightly I felt her nails digging into my skin. Kevin, you can't be serious. You can't leave a woman in that condition in one of these places. They'll eat her alive. What do you want me to do, Lords? How about inviting Amy into our bed? The three of us? You heard me. It wouldn't be Amy's first time with another babe. Or maybe that's what you're doing right now? I raised an eyebrow at Lords and threw her a mocking glance. Lords loosened her grip and waved me away. You men are all the same. Put your fantasies aside. More like my nightmare, I replied. Losing you to Amy will have me sucking on the tailpipe. Whatever, Lords rolled her eyes. Amy can sleep on the couch tonight. We'll decide the rest in the morning. Who is this Lords? Some Latin version of the Italian mafia godfather's testament of keep your friends close and your enemies even closer? I saw the way you jerked Amy around with your remark about herpes with Bell's palsy. Lords lowered her eyes. Yeah, I had to do that. It was bitchy of me to kick a man when he's down. Lords sighed. And then I remembered, WJD, it's just one night. So you better count the silverware when you wake up, I objected. Kevin, we don't have silverware worth counting, Lords replied. Lords, doesn't it bother you that my ex-wife, given her reputation, would sleep in this house? I asked. Lords looked at me seriously for a moment. I know you and, more importantly, I trust you. Besides, if you leave me for plastics and trout lips, you were never mine anyway. Lords, that will never happen, so you'll stay with me. I kissed her. Next chapter. I was in the kitchen at 6 a.m. the next morning, dressed in my maintenance jumpsuit. I wasn't flying today, but I was supposed to be cleaning 3 houses for Jose Maria's wife's company. Good morning, Kevin. It was Amy, standing at the entrance to the kitchen with a blanket wrapped around her. Her hair was asleep on the couch. I only hummed, turning away to attend to my cup of coffee. Kevin, do you still have our boxes of cards? Amy asked and yawned. Those were your cards, Amy, and no, I don't have any more of your postcards. Where are they? Amy asked insistently. I burned them, Amy. In fact, I roasted marshmallows on them. Sort of like the flames of our past. Oh, Amy said with an unhappy look. I sat down and stirred my coffee. For a few minutes, we were both silent. Kevin, I just want to thank you for letting me stay the night, Amy said. Don't thank me, Amy. I wasn't thrilled with the idea. Thank you, Lords, I replied. Yes, Lords. Amy paused. You and her, she interrupted. I didn't answer anything. My relationship with Lords was none of Amy's business. Kevin. Amy started wiping saliva from her busted lip. I don't know if I said that last night, but I'm sorry. Sorry for what, Amy? For cheating? For leaving? For taking all the money? Ruined our marriage? Lied? Trying to take more money after bankrupting me? Coming back to ruin my life? Or do you wish you didn't have all those toys Troy gave you in your life anymore? You need to be more specific. I'm sorry I wanted something more than you did, Amy said softly. That sounds more like buyer's remorse to me. I stood up and poured the rest of my coffee into the sink. Tell me, Amy, if the house of cards hadn't collapsed and you still had all the advantages of the last 3 years, would you still be here today? Kevin, I'm sorry I left you, I heard Amy say as I rinsed my coffee cup. I felt a touch on my shoulder. I turned around. Standing in front of me was Amy. I see someone is glad I stayed the night, Amy said. Don't flatter yourself, Amy. Kevin, I meant what I said last night. I'm yours and yours alone. You can do whatever you want with me, anytime, anywhere, any place. Amy held out her hand. I've read that text once before, Amy. I'll pass. I walked out the door. Next chapter. I realized that my first serious fight with Lords was going to be over Amy. I just wanted Amy out of my life. It was someone else's problem. Both Lourdes and Maria pounced on me. Jose, Maria's husband, prudently made sure he was out of sight. I wish I could have done the same. All the talk of Christian charity, forgiveness, and turning the other cheek was fine in theory, but in practice it all sucked. However, two Catholic Latina women who believe God is on their side are a force of nature. Both were adamant that it is our duty to help those in need if we can. Bread thrown on the water and all that? They tried to explain that forgiveness doesn't mean I have to forget what Amy did to me. These two argued that saints throughout the ages have forgiven sinners who have done wrong to them. Even Jesus forgave Judas, who committed the ultimate betrayal. I said that I was no saint and that any resemblance between me and Jesus was cosmetic at best. Amy and Mary were not discouraged, claiming that I had once loved Amy enough to marry her. Amy's devotion to me in the recent past, against all odds, entitled her to help me now. Good God, I'd rather mess around with a couple of rabid badgers than Lourdes and Maria. Lourdes explained and laughed at Amy's recent attempt to seduce her as the result of stress, post-traumatic stress disorder due to the sudden turn of events, an attempt to reconnect with a safe and secure past. Lourdes is better than me. I couldn't swallow such nonsense. Maria found Amy a job cleaning houses. The farthest place I could take Amy was the mother-in-law's apartment above my garage that Lourdes had arranged for Amy to live in. Amy paid a paltry rent, which helped us a lot. Lourdes and Amy would sometimes sit on our porch and talk. I tried to avoid Amy at all costs. Who wants to remember the train wreck? Lourdes said Amy only worked and went to church, never leaving the apartment in the garage. I had one warm place I wanted to send Amy, but I kept it to myself, saying under my breath a few times. Truth be told, I have to admit that Amy never hit on me or proposed again. After a few months, things finally settled down. I was climbing the stairs to the porch returning from my flights. Lourdes was standing on the porch talking to an older woman with silver hair who seemed vaguely familiar. I held out my hand to introduce myself when the silver-haired woman hugged me tightly. "Kevin, you remember Mrs. Talon," Lourdes said, "from the golf course." And then it hit me. It was the wife of the heart attack victim from that day on the golf course. Now I had a name and a face. I let her go get help that day while Jose and I performed CPR on her husband. "Let's go, let's go," exclaimed the silver-haired Mrs. Talon, dragging me into the house. "He's been waiting for you all day and is as irritated as an old bear." "Who's waiting for me?" I asked, entering the dining room. The man we'd rescued from the golf course was sitting at my dining room table. The table was piled with official papers. The man was silver-haired, like his wife. He was of medium build and height, and he smelled of authority. A cane lay on the chair. "Damn boy, come here," roared the silver-haired man. "I'm Boone Talon, and I've been waiting to meet you for a very long time." The silver-haired Boone Talon raised his cane and tapped it on the chair beside him. "Sit your lucky ass down right here." Boone Talon was a man used to having others do his bidding. I sat down next to him. Boone slapped me on the back so hard I almost fell off the chair. "Damn boy, mind if I call you Kevin?" Boone Talon said without waiting for an answer. "I owe you my life." Boone Talon always pays his debts. He picked up a piece of paper from the table and tossed it into my lap. "Listen, Kevin, this is a personal services contract. I own a Learjet 60 airplane, and you will become one of my personal pilots once you get your license for it. The contract is for 15 years with annual raises and bonuses. You can renew it every year. It doesn't matter if I live or die. The only way to screw this up is to crash the damn airplane. If you do that, you're dead, so you don't get paid anyway. Doc says I can't pilot anymore, but I have to be in position. Lear stays here. I'm paging you. Got it?" I looked at the paycheck and my eyes popped out. It was stupid money, money won in the lottery. "Mr. Talon," I began. "That's very generous, but this Kevin." The silver-haired Boone Talon interrupted me. "You mean my life isn't worth a few measly bucks? The damn insurance company should pay you that much in thanks for saving my sorry ass that day on the golf course. By saving my life, they made those bastards at the insurance company not pay my policy." I was at a loss, but the energetic silver-haired Boone Talon wasn't confused. "Next, Kevin, here's this stack of papers. These are the deeds to this house showing that it's fully paid for. Consider it a signing bonus. I can't have my pilots worrying about some damn mortgage when they're flying my ass. I want them totally focused in the cockpit. The new F250 Power Stroke pickup is still titled, and you can get it at the dealer tomorrow. When I call, I don't want you waiting at some damn bus stop. Got it. Boone Talon's gray hair ruffled slightly as he tapped his cane on the table before continuing. That shit with those cowards at the Nine Rivers Country Club? Tried to charge you $250,000 for messing up the weed by taking me to the hospital? Forget it. I got more lawyers in the phone book than the whole city. I put my New York profiteers on those fools at Nine River. The greedy assholes at Nine Rivers were trying to make a profit, collecting insurance money for the damage from you, too. The assholes at Nine Rivers Place should send you a letter of apology this week, along with a paid-up full membership. And now you, young lady, silver-haired Boone Talon pointed his cane at Lords. We need to get you a nursing license. I have 2 instructors from the Kaplan Testing Center who live in a hotel downtown. They will be your personal tutors. I want you to pass this test in 90 days. After that, All Saints Hospital will hire you to work in pediatrics and cardiology. After a year, you will be trained to be my flying nurse to please the damn insurance assholes. Among the masses of papers on your desk is a contract for you as well. Your student loan debts are now a thing of the past. They're paid in full. Besides, I do a lot of flying on my airplane with the kids, so you'll do well in school. Lords jumped up and hugged Boone Talon tightly. Careful, honey. Boone Talon teased Lords. If a young babe touches me like that, it'll drive my pace setter into a frenzy. Mr. Talon, I turned to our silver-haired benefactor. I don't want to show a gift horse in the teeth, but Jose, my chief mechanic. Boone Talon interrupted me. That Cuban guy with the stubborn Latin wife, Maria? Boone Talon grinned. I'll cover for him. Jose is going to Bombardier Lear to get qualified in a Lear 65 series airplane. That airplane is in service with your old airline. Jose is going to be in charge and get a big pay raise. I couldn't get Jose or his wife Maria to take a dime. It took me days to find all the universities his family attends. All their children's tuition is fully paid for, as is housing, books, any loans and fees. I'd rather deal with the IRS than deal with his wife Maria again. Her cleaning company has a big contract increase coming up. Just don't tell her anything. Bill Talon rose from his chair, leaning on his silver cane. Now, before I go, one last thing. You two, carry your bodies to the preacher, the priest, the justice of the peace, the rabbi, the imam, whatever. I don't like my staff to live in sin. Next chapter. Lords and I did get married after all. I wanted a small and simple wedding. Lords, Maria, and the rest of the Latina women were on top of it. They informed me that my participation was for Jose and I to pick up our tuxedos and show up at the church on the appointed day and hour. It was a grand event at the Nine Rivers Country Club. Boone Talon, our wealthy patron of the arts who had given us a heart attack on the golf course, loved a good party. He insisted on paying for the whole event, including a cruise for the newlyweds. A wedding gift, as Boone Talon called it. Amy was there. She's gotten stronger, but she still needs a cane to get around. Because of her short-term memory problems, she seems a little scattered at times. Routines and a house cleaning schedule help her stay on track. Amy still rents our small apartment above the garage. I treat Amy politely but warily, like a dog that once bit you. Sometimes Amy goes out with a guy who is part of one of the cleaning crews. They met at church and I wish them luck. My new job has combined 2 of my loves, Lords and flying. Lords sends Amy postcards from wherever we fly to, no matter how big or small. Amy and Lords still sit on the porch in the evenings while Lords discusses with Amy all the details of where the postcard is going. However, that will soon stop as Lords will have to give up flying for a while. The good news is that I'm going to be a proud papa. Soon I will have 3 loves, the end. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and watch for the next video.